Let's read James chapter 4, starting in verse 1. You can find that in your pew Bible, and if you don't have a Bible, we would invite you to take that pew Bible as yours. It would be our just joy that you would take that as a gift from us. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and you don't have, so you murder. You covet and you can't obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you don't receive because you ask wrongly, to spend it on your passions. You ask and then you do not receive. It's spent on your passions. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you suppose it is to no purpose that the Scripture says, He yearns jealously over the Spirit that He has made to dwell in us? Point number one, there's a cause of our conflict. There's a cause of the conflict. And if you want to walk through this passage with me real quick, there's a particular word that you can look for. You, your, you covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You don't have because you don't ask. You ask and you don't receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. 12 in the first 3 verses. It's not someone else who's the problem. You're the problem. Sorry. So it is you, but who's the you here? James is writing to a Jewish audience, an early church audience who is mixed up of mainly Jewish Christians as well as some Greek Christians as well, some Gentile Christian converts, and he is writing to them to encourage them. But he's saying, look, you have so many issues going on inside of your heart and inside of your life. And if you will look at these things, you can change, and you can change the church around you. So what causes quarrels? Warring desires, passions, and cravings. You murder because you desire to get something and you don't have it. Now, do I think that the murder was a huge issue in the church? Like, you get up, you pull out the sword, you go over. I don't actually think that murder was happening on a rampant level in the early church that James is writing to here, but it harkens back to what Jesus shared when he said, if you hate your brother, it is the same as murder. It's the same thing. It's inward murder. When you move with hatred toward your brother, they were filled with hatred. Scraping and clawing for attention, for prominence, for prestige, compliments, the best roles in the church. And then when they didn't get it and someone else got it, they got mad and hatred rose up inside of them for it. Is desire bad? No, not necessarily. But when you are moving in this way, that your desires, another word for desire could be lust in a different translation. When your desires overtake you and you answer to your desires rather than your desires being something that you bring before God and you allow God to transform, it becomes a really big issue. If you think about Little Mermaid, Ariel, right? She went and she had a desire to be part of a different world than the one she was part of, right? And how did she attain this? Well, she trusted the wrong person. That was a lot of the issue. Who'd she trust? She trusted Ursula, the villain in The Little Mermaid, to give her what she wanted. And many other mer people had gone to Ursula, this witch, in order to get their desires fulfilled. And then they found that it was a trick, because instead of actually giving them what they desired, Ursula, after she let them taste for just a moment the desire that they wanted, she would then take them back and trap them in her little garden of twisted mer people. And they were enslaved to their desires and the consequences of it. The wanting something is not necessarily the issue, but it is when it is the lust of it, the desire of it, the overpowering draw and pull toward that thing, that it is in control of you. And it leads you to hatred when you can't get it. And so then what's next? Well, after that, you covet and you cannot obtain it, so you fight and you quarrel. This imagery that James is using comes from the language of warfare. incredibly strong, big problems. But really what he's focusing on is not just out there warfare, but he's focusing on what happens with the destructiveness of violent attitudes being broken out against each other and being unrestrained. When you just take these desires and they lead you and they run you forward. What causes fights and quarrels among you? These passions that you have, these warring passions that, yes, you have within you, but then that others have against each other. And then you desire something, you lust after it, and then you covet it, and you grow into this jealousy. You grow into this jealous approach to your brother and sister rather than being able to celebrate what it is that God is doing in their lives. When they're elevated, when they get the promotion, when they get to come up on stage and sing, when, all of these different pieces that in small and in big ways move our hearts forward, do we celebrate them? Do we honor what God's doing in their lives? Do we say, well, that's wonderful, and recognize that God also is working in us? Or do we get jealous of what it is that we don't have? Oh, I wish I was just more like them. Or if only I could be. Well, guess what? God's interested in forming and transforming and guiding you forward. He's not interested in guiding and transforming you to become a picture of something else, of somebody else. Look at them and honor them and encourage them. So what are the causes that are happening? As we've been looking through the book of James, we can see a lot of the different sources of the contention that's happening in this early church. The Christian Jews and the Christian Gentiles are having tremendous cultural conflicts. Just because they come from different cultural backgrounds, and so they're running into issues with each other on a very regular basis. We saw very clearly earlier in James that the rich Christians were being mistreated by giving elevated status, and that was causing tension. And then the poor Christians were being mistreated by giving de-elevated status, and that was causing tremendous tension between those people who were choosing how they were treating each other, and then between the rich and the poor alike. And tension was being caused between them. We see anger driving them to take hurtful actions. And then we see that James says that your tongue is like the spark that starts a wildfire. And he says your tongue is having that much of a destructive power and a destructive effect on the world around you. So we see the trouble, we see the animosity that is happening here in this. And a good quote reminds us of the real significant nature of what's happening. Because we look at this and you kind of go, okay, I see all of these things, but what's the issue? What's the overflow? What's the impact of this? Roger Ellsworth in his commentary says, a church filled with anger, coveting, fighting, and quarreling refutes its own message. It says to unbelievers, come to Christ and he will change your life. And the unbelievers all around laugh and say, why is it that he has not changed you? How do you solve an infection? How do you heal an infected wound? You just put a Band-Aid on it, right? If you have an infection, it's infected, I'll just put another Band-Aid on it. Next day, it's still infected, I'll just put another Band-Aid on it. Still infected, I'll just put another Band-Aid on it. No big deal, right? No, you know what to do for a wound. You go in there, you clean that wound. If it's really bad, you go into the doctor. And if the doctor says, I got a lot of it, but you're fine, just go home, no big deal. Go ahead on. No, you got to get the antibiotics, you got to get it clean, you got it taken care of, because an infection is something that needs to be completely taken care of, otherwise it will continue running rampant in your system, and you need to take care of it. You have to. What causes fights and quarrels? These quarrels are like an infection that is rising up in the church, that's rising up in their relationships, and if you don't get down to the cause of it, then it's going to fester, and then it will grow and grow. So what's the problem? Well, end of verse 2. You don't have because you don't ask. You don't have because you do not ask God, is the question, right? Or is the implied word there. You don't have these things because you are not going to God asking for God's direction to help you get them. You are just deciding what you are going to go and get, and so you are running after it. You, again, are trying to figure it out. You're going to get it for yourself, right? Again, all of the yous. You didn't ask God. How often do we do that? We get to the end of a situation. We get halfway through a situation. We get too frustrated with the things that are happening to us or overwhelmed by them. And we stop and go, hold on, I didn't ask God. You're in the middle of an argument. All of your emotions are risen up. And this is the hardest time for me to ask for God's help, right? You're just like, I'm right. I'm annoyed. I'm going to fix this. You're the problem. This is a good moment where I should probably say, God, what is happening in here? Hold on. God, help me. What causes fights and quarrels? What's the answer to a fight and a quarrel? A lot of times, it is simply having the presence of mind to stop in that moment of it rising up and asking God. But secondly, you still aren't getting it, even when you're asking, because you are asking with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your passions. He says, even when you're praying, you are treating God like a vending machine, going, okay, I need this, yay, because you still want to be in control of what you get. Yay, okay, give me this, okay, give me this. You're asking wrongly, because going to God in prayer, asking God to direct us and guide us forward is not to say, hey, God's a vending machine and I'm still in control of this situation, but it is to go to God and say, I am not in control of any of this. This is all yours, completely yours. Here's what I want. Here's what I think I need, but it's yours. You take it. You transform it. You tell me no, and then guide me through understanding why. That's exactly what he just said in this. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. If you are praying and asking God for something and God is telling you no over and over again, that's not the end of the conversation. That's not the end. When God denies a request, that's not the end of the conversation. That's actually probably the beginning of a very long chat, because God, in his grace and in his guidance of your life, is saying, we need to work on something in you. Or in fact, the answer is no, because there's something different or better that you can't understand right now. So sit with me so that I can explain to you why the answer is no. Because on the other side of that, there'll be a yes as you take these desires, take this covetousness, give it to the Lord, and let God change you. There's a consequence here of this conflict. Verse 4, you adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you suppose that it is to no purpose that the Scripture says he yearns jealously over the Spirit that he has made to dwell in us? The word that you have in verse 2, desire, and the word that you have in verse 2 as well, covet, and then the word that you have in verse 4, adulteress, those are the exact same words that are written in the Greek version of the Old Testament called the Septuagint in the section of the Ten Commandments. So when James is writing this and when the Jewish readers are reading this, they aren't just reading, oh yeah, okay, desire, covetousness, adultery, okay, sort of thing. It is the exact same word that was written in the Old Testament for those 10 commandments around covetousness, lust, covet, and adultery. And so they're reading this and they're going, oh, that's right, the 10 commandments. Oh, that's right, the commands of God. And just before this, James had outlined to them, hey, remember, if you break one area of this law, it is in fact that you have broken all of it. And so James is presenting this and putting this in front of the church, reminding them that there are consequences of walking in this way, that you're actually putting yourself against the ways of God. He's writing to a Christian audience, okay? Because this is the moment where, mattering on your background in church, you go, okay, so like salvation, no. That's taken care of. God's organized that with you. He is writing to a Christian audience about what it looks like to continue day over day walking in faith and walking with the Lord. You can walk in the ways of the world. You can walk in the ways of God. God is leading, God is laying out for you what it looks like if you want to walk in the ways of the world and the consequences and the challenges as a Christian that are around that. And then what it looks like to walk in the ways of God. So when he says, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? He's not saying don't have any friends who aren't Christians, but he is saying don't walk in agreeing with the frames of the world, the passions and the lusts of the world, the pursuits of these jealousies and these cravings. Don't declare that those are good and right. That's the friendship framework that it's talking about. The one who does that is going to be at war with God. And he's saying pick the world, and you're going to put yourself at odds with God. And that's going to be really difficult for your daily walk because you're going to be pursuing things that God is going to be calling you back from. You're going to be at odds with him. Your prayer life is going to be tremendously challenging because God will be telling you no because you are driving this way, praying for things that God is not going to fulfill. Instead, pursue and seek God. Walk with God in his ways because we are his people. God yearns jealously for the hearts of his people. He yearns jealously over the spirit that he has made to dwell in us. He's put his spirit in you. You're a Christian. You have been marked and cleansed and are his for all of eternity. You're part of God's family. And when we turn and we go, cool, I'm going to run over here. I'm going to do this instead. There's a hurt in there. There's a distance there. God goes, no, don't do that. That is going to cause you such harm. Instead, stay with me. Be here with me. Continue with me. The powerful, wonderful love of God is drawing you back. It's about the condition of the heart. When your heart is dark with appetites that are overpowering a weak will, you have to be transformed. And then you have to be strengthened so that you can turn aside from all of those things and be able to approach God instead. When I think about this, the prodigal son comes into my mind because the prodigal son, if you're familiar with this story, you know, but otherwise, track with me for a second. He decided, this is a parable Jesus told, that he wanted the inheritance right now while his father was still alive. So he took the inheritance and he ran off and he squandered it with wild living, with drinking and partying and prostitutes, and he just squandered all the money, all of it. And he found himself with absolutely nothing, no friends, totally alone in the world, far, far, far away from his father, far away from his family. And then he finds himself working in a pig pen, feeding pigs, so hungry that he desires to eat the slop that the pigs are eating, right? There's a gross moment, right, in this. And if you're a Jew, that's the worst possible job because pigs are an unclean animal, so it just builds on top of that. But then he realizes that he can get up and go home. He has this moment of clarity. I could go to my father and maybe my father would have mercy on me. So he gets up, and what do we think he does? Does he get up and take a shower? Get up and go get a new change of clothes, get up and, shave and clean his beard, comb his hair, all of those things. No, what we see in the passage is that he gets up and he goes to his father and probably shows up stinking like pigs in worn out, nasty clothes, just looking gnarly and unkempt and terrible. He doesn't clean himself up before he comes to his father. He just comes to his father. And what does his father do? Wraps his arms around him and embraces him and welcomes him home. And that's each of us, maybe every day, in some of these different ways. We go, do I need to clean myself up first? No, you need to turn just to God. And then God does the transforming. God does the cleaning up. God does the strengthening inside of you. He gives more grace. Verse 6, but he gives more grace. Therefore, it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Maybe you spent your life pursuing some of these other things. You have a hard time realizing that this grace continues pouring over you, over and over and over again. And what's the posture that unlocks the grace? The posture that unlocks the grace is humility. Pride is the posture that puts us in opposition to God. Pride saying, I've got it figured out. I'm going to do this myself. The I focus of I have it figured out. I don't need God. The humble posture puts us in that place of recognizing that we need God and we can't do it without God. God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. So right now, quit your arrogance. Let it go. Let go of it. Quit defending why you're pursuing this, why you're right in the situation, why the other person needs to change. Humble yourself. Come before God, and God will give you grace, and God will transform you. As we look in this passage, we kind of see this framework that they seemed much more interested, this church, in building their own status than in loving their brothers and sisters. Francis Chan says, aren't you glad we're not like that, church? It continues. As soon as we say it's everyone else's problem and not ours, then it becomes our problem. The solution is not to argue better or prove that we're right and others are wrong. The solution is to humble ourselves, admit where we've fallen short, pray for the things that God cares about, mourn over our sinfulness, and receive God's grace. Amen, church? There's a cure for this conflict. There's a cure for this conflict, and it starts right there in verse 6. Be humble, but then it continues on, starting in verse 7. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Submit yourself before the Lord. You know why you're not getting the things that you want? Because you're not asking God. You know why you're not getting the things that you want? Because when you ask God, you ask with wrong motives, that you can still be in control and spend it the way you want and live the way you want. Submit yourself to God. When I do ask, let go of control. God, lead me. This is yours. I know what I want. I know what I think I need, but I don't actually know. You are the one who knows, and that is a submitting posture before the Lord, a humble posture before God. Resist the devil, and what? He will flee. Yeah, resist the devil, and he will flee. Not like meander across your lawn and stand on your sidewalk just off your property line, but still close enough to yell at you and harass you. No, the word flee in here is like a convict running away, trying to not get caught. Not get caught. And when I lived in Gilroy, I was sitting on my front porch, and a sheriff truck comes barreling down the dirt road and just takes off across my property and into the neighbor's orchard. There was like 10 houses that had 10 acres each, and I was kind of on the edge of them, and I could look at all of them. And then another cop car comes running in right behind him, turns into my driveway, and I'm like, what is happening here? What's going on? And the guy kind of pops out of his car, and he says, we're looking for an escaped convict. If you see anybody running shirtless without shoes on, let us know, because he is, on the run. I'm like, this is wild. I'm going inside. He's like, yes, go inside, lock the door. And then sure enough, a few minutes later, I see a shirtless, shoeless man running across the orchard for his life. Call the police. They go and chase him down. That's the picture here. Resist the devil, and what? He can't stand in the power of God. Resist the devil, and he cannot stand in the power of God, and he will flee from you. Flee away from you. Leaving nothing behind, leaving a gap of Satan's presence, leaving a void that must be filled by what? Well, look at the passage. Draw near to God, same word, and he will draw near to you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. I remember I was at the playground with my son. I told Isaac, hey, I'm going to sit over here, and I went and sat down. He got confused, thinking I was sitting over there rather than over here, and so he's playing at the playground, looks up to where he thought I was sitting. He freaks out. Oh, my goodness, and you just kind of see the panic rising. And I'm like from here to right there. I'm like, I see him, but he's looking that way, and the panic is rising in him, and he just starts looking around. Where's my dad? Right here. I'm all alone. No one's here. I'm by myself. Whoa, Dad's so far away. Hey, buddy. Oh, oh, and he runs over to me, gives me a hug. Oh, that's right. Okay, that's where you are. Yeah, this is where I am. And then he saunters off. And when I was reading this passage, I was like, that's exactly what it was like. That's exactly what I'm like. I'm looking over here. I'm all alone. God's so far away. God, would you please help me? And just tap on my shoulder. Oh, there you are. My goodness, you've been right there the entire time. God's never far away. God's given his spirit to us. God is with us constantly. Draw near to God and what? He will draw near to you. You will experience his closeness immediately because God is with you. God wants to guide you. God wants to bring you to humility. The next three run together. Cleanse your hands, purify your hearts, be wretched and mourn and wail. Cleanse your hands. Wash your hands. Ritual washings was very, very common in the Jewish culture. Washing your hands for cleanliness, for ceremonial cleanliness. This makes sense to them. They go, oh, of course, of course. If there's sin in my life, I need to look at rinsing that, at cleaning that, at washing that off. And what happened? Well, Jesus washed us clean with his blood. So by the red of his blood, you are white as snow. You are washed. You are cleansed. And when you sin, when you walk in this, you bring that to God. Like, God, I'm washing myself of that. I don't want any more of that. I'm not leaving any of that on me. I'm walking away. Purify your hearts, you double-minded person. Earlier in James, we saw double-mindedness as a way that carries us into a place of absolute confusion because you can't pursue two things at once. Even what's written in this passage reminding us that you can't pursue the way of jealousy, of covetousness, of desire, of lust. You can't pursue that way and at the same time pursue a humble posture toward God and a humble posture towards others. So when you see that in yourself, you humble yourself to God in order that you can be purified. And then this next part just sounds weird. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Wander around and be depressed, apparently, is the order of the day. Good luck. All right. Have a nice Sunday. Enjoy. What do we need to be, church? We need to be filled with the recognition that we're covered with God's grace. Okay, that's right there in verse 6. You are covered in God's grace. And the sin you commit, it is serious. It is a problem. It is a big deal. It is putting separation between you and God, between you and others. It is influencing others very, very negatively. And so take that laughter and turn it to mourning because you have impacted others wrongly and poorly. Mourn over that. Grieve over that. Turn your joy to gloom because what you have done has been profoundly unhelpful and damaging. And then remember that verse 10 is just as true as the verse that we just read. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he's going to exalt you. Amen. So what do? We recognize the weight of it. We recognize the impact of it. Ecclesiastes 7:2 says, it is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. For death is the destiny of everyone, and the living should take this to heart. There is a genuine goodness for our souls to recognize that, man, you know what? I have had a negative impact on things. At the beginning, what causes fights and quarrels among you? You do. Well, they did too. Well, they did. Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're right. But that's between them and God. What about what's between you and God? Because that's the first thing that you can fix and that you can figure out. And then God may very well lead you to go to them in a way that would allow them to meet God and spend time with God and be transformed. Pride builds a cardboard fortress that humility must every day tear down. Building up this fortress, and we put all of this work into it, our perspective that we've got it all figured out. We walk in pride and we build this little cardboard fortress. We go, God, isn't this the coolest thing ever? God goes, man, I really wish You wouldn't have put your time and effort into that. I've got something a whole lot better for you to do. It's a little bit like this. Like, I'll leave in the morning, and, you get some Amazon boxes from the recycling, and my kids, it's summertime, so they're very creative and bored, and what are we going to do? And so they are making all these little creations out of these cardboard boxes. But they're pretty cool. I mean, they're making little cities and roads and people and cars and, cutting all these little things out, and it's fun. And I come back, and it's just like the end of the day, it's just like these piles everywhere. And I'm like, how in the world did you do all of this in one day of building all these random things? Like, yeah, it's so cool. Look at this, look at that, look at that. And then the next day, someone has stepped on the cardboard car and it's broken, and the little cardboard man got ripped in half, and then it's time to clean it up, right? It's time to clean it up, and they're devastated. I don't want to clean it up. It's the coolest thing ever. I'm like, it's broken and it's ripped in half. It's time to put this in the trash and clean this up. And it's just devastating for them because they're holding on to it. That's so important to them. And I'm like, it's cardboard, buddy. That's really not that big of a deal. This really doesn't. And then I start to think, oh, I do that with my own life. Focusing on building up all of these things that are just little cardboard fortresses. And God comes along and says, let's focus on something better. I can help you build something so much better than that. Church, you have quarrels and fights. They're caused by hatred, by envy, coveting, desires, lusts that are against God. They don't get solved because we don't ask God. And they don't get resolved because when we finally get around to it, we ask God with twisted motives. And his generous, loving answer is no, while he helps shape what's going on in our hearts. We need to humble ourselves. We need to find and create for our ways and build ways for ourselves to be humble and walk in humility and pursue the way of humility in order that we can experience God exalting us, in order that we can experience not walking in pride. What should you do when you're praying? Kneel, take the worst task on purpose in order to remind yourself that that you as well should embark on that. How should you approach things in order to be humble? Should you make sure that you're quiet longer in a conversation? Should you have a certain amount of time that you count in your own mind before you allow yourself to respond? Because maybe like me, you're quick to be defensive and you just jump out really quickly. And if you just hold on for a few minutes, a few seconds, Nathan, I think this conversation would go a whole lot better. What is it like in you? It's not so much the specific, but it's about the attitude of seeking humility. Seeking humility. Memorize some of this passage today. Nick Willenda, he is a high wire artist. He's a follower of Christ. And he has had some incredible feats. They've been seen by more than 1 billion people across the world. In 2012, he tight-roped across Niagara Falls. Maybe you saw that. In 2013, he high-wire walked across the Grand Canyon. Last year, him and his sister did a combo walk where they were on the same wire walking along. Just remarkable, remarkable stuff. And he writes this. He says, I know that I'm going to be tempted by pride. And so after the huge crowds and the media fade away, I engage in a simple spiritual discipline. I walk where the crowds have stood, and I quietly pick up trash. He writes this, my purpose is to help clean up after myself. The huge crowd left a great deal of trash, and I feel compelled to pitch in. But besides that, after the inordinate amount of attention that I sought and received for these feats that I've done, I need to keep myself grounded. 3 hours of cleaning up debris is good for my soul. Humility doesn't come naturally to me, so if I have to force myself into situations that are humbling, so be it. I know that I need to get down on my knees, hands and knees like everyone else. I do it because it's a way to keep from tripping. As a follower of Jesus, I see him washing the feet of others. I do it because if I don't serve others, I'll be serving nothing but my ego. Church, let's pray together and ask God for humility.